Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Thursday, 24th April, 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. China is strategically positioning itself economically through investments in technology and assertive trade policies. The nation's focus on electric vehicles, showcased at the Shanghai Auto Show, reflects evolving consumer demands and the impact of tariffs. Slowed capital spending and price wars affect domestic energy storage amid trade pressures. To challenge U.S. economic dominance, China seeks to boost the yuan's international standing through overseas gold storage and internationalizing physical delivery for Shanghai gold exchange products. Memory chip giant CXMT expands, including its Japanese branch. Beijing and Shanghai see nearly 14 million square feet of R&D facilities under construction in the life sciences. Amid trade disputes, China reportedly asked Korea to restrict rare earth supplies to U.S. defense firms and increased military activity around Taiwan. Geely plans to share its battery safety patent pool. Volkswagen will right-size in China, and Nissan will invest an additional $1.40 billion. Trade relations between the U.S. and China continue to be a significant economic and political issue. The U.S. Treasury Secretary anticipates de-escalation and is negotiating trade deal. Ray Dalio has expressed concerns about potential fallout from President Trump's tariff policies, and despite fluctuations, the Treasury Department asserts that China needs to change. Some analysts believe Beijing can afford to wait for a better trade deal due to pressure on the U.S. side. China-based retailers Shine and Temu plan to increase prices due to Trump's trade policies, and Franklin Templeton expects China to be among the last to reach a trade agreement reducing tariffs. Boeing is experiencing challenges due to the U.S.-China trade war. Chinese airlines have refused to accept Boeing planes, affecting the company's financial recovery. Some 737 MAX planes were flown back to the U.S. after China halted acceptance of Boeing aircraft. Tesla also faces impacts from trade dynamics and export controls. CEO Elon Musk warned that China's restrictions on rare earth metal exports could delay Tesla's Optimus robot production. China seeks assurances that magnets Tesla is trying to buy will not be used for military purposes. Tesla shares increased 5% after Elon Musk suggested he would spend more time at the company, and tariff optimism improved investor sentiment. Globally, European markets rallied on hopes of easing U.S.-China trade tensions, with mining and tech stocks experiencing gains. Hong Kong stocks have also seen gains as investors bet on easing trade tensions following Trump's comments, with Alibaba and Guizhou contributing to the positive trend. Stocks have rebounded in response to signals of softened stances on tariffs and expectations of de-escalation in the trade war. Lastly, United Energy, a Chinese oil firm, secured a private loan from Arab Energy. Russia is actively involved in international diplomacy and confronting internal economic pressures. President Putin engaged in discussions with the leader of Oman in Moscow about US-Iran nuclear talks, positioning Russia as a possible mediator. Simultaneously, Putin proposed freezing the front line in Ukraine, while Russian forces claimed capture of a village in the Sumy region. However, Russia dismissed Trump's deadline for Ukraine war negotiations as unrealistic. Following the breakdown of peace talks in London, the ruble and Russian stocks saw a decline. An explosion at a Russian ammunition depot east of Moscow reportedly destroyed 264,000 tons of munitions, raising concerns about military preparedness. Russia's finance minister stated that the country needs to increase its fiscal reserves due to global uncertainty. In legal news, Russia reduced the sentence for American Robert Woodland, convicted on drug charges. Russia and Oman signed 11 agreements to enhance trade and bilateral ties, including a visa waiver agreement and a separate agreement with Qatar to jointly invest 2 billion euros into sovereign wealth funds. Turning to the United States, the focus is on trade negotiations and reviewing international policy. The U.S. President directed a review of US-funded international organizations, including the IMF and World Bank. The U.S. and Japan are nearing an outline of a trade deal. Amid trade tensions with China, the U.S. stock market experienced volatility. A U.S. envoy is scheduled to visit Russia as Trump pushes for a ceasefire in Ukraine. China is currently navigating trade tensions with the United States. The potential trade war could disrupt Chinese firms' U.S. gas contracts and plans. A bank netting system, the China Track, is reportedly shielding Russia-China trade from Western oversight. Hopes for a thaw in US-China trade relations have caused Hong Kong stocks to rise. Ukraine remains at the center of international diplomatic efforts and ongoing conflict. Russia has captured a village in Ukraine's Sumy region. Trump is pushing for a ceasefire in Ukraine, with a U.S. envoy planning a visit to Russia. Putin has proposed freezing the front line in Ukraine. Oman is strengthening its ties with Russia while playing a role in international diplomacy. The Sultan of Oman visited Moscow, resulting in the signing of 11 agreements aimed at boosting trade and bilateral relations, including a visa waiver agreement. Oman's leader also discussed Iran nuclear talks with Putin in Moscow. Within the European Union, consideration is being given to targeting the spot market for a Russian gas phase-out. Some view the current situation in the U.S. as an opportunity for Europe to assert itself. Globally, stock markets have reacted to expectations of a potential truce in the U.S.-China trade war. The U.S. markets rebounded as the trade deal outlook improved, with the Dow Jones jumping 1,000 points and the Nasdaq and S&P 500 soaring by 3%. Asian markets faced headwinds from Wall Street's struggles, while escalating tariffs sent the South African market into a downturn amid political uncertainty. India's stock market is currently riding a wave of optimism, propelled by solid economic fundamentals, robust earnings growth, and its strategic position in the global trade landscape. The Sensex concluded trading at 80,116.49, marking a 521-point increase, while the Nifty 50 climbed 162 points to settle at 24,328. Predictions indicate that the BSE Sensex could reach unprecedented levels in 2025, fueled by impressive earnings and GDP growth. Top Indian funds are strategically targeting domestic sectors to stimulate market recovery in the face of global uncertainties. Financial stocks have been pivotal in driving recent gains, contributing to the Indian benchmark's best week in over 4 years, boosted by increased liquidity. While a terror attack in Pahalgam could introduce short-term volatility in J&K Bank shares, if India responds with retaliation, the overall market sentiment remains buoyant, with Indian shares opening higher on expectations of easing US-China trade tensions. Akin Goel of Bonanza Group is advising investors to focus on mid- and small-cap stocks. Jay Thakkar from ICC Securities suggests considering Infosys May Futures, Astral May Futures, and Colgate-Palmolive, India, May Futures for short-term investments. Ashish Kumar Chauhan has commented on India's stock market successes. However, LG Electronics has delayed its Indian subsidiary's IPO due to stock market instability, resulting in a valuation decrease from $15 billion to a range of $10.50–11.5 billion. Tesla is also carefully evaluating entering the Indian market, addressing tariff concerns and sales declines. Beyond financial markets, India is strengthening its economic partnership with Saudi Arabia, including a significant agreement concerning oil refineries, which signifies a transformative phase in their relationship. The Prime Minister is actively promoting increased collaboration with Saudi Arabia in both energy and technology sectors. India is also navigating the intricacies of international trade, with its solar manufacturers identifying both opportunities and potential risks stemming from ongoing global trade disputes. The nation is increasingly viewed as a preferred alternative amidst the trade war. Permira is shifting its strategic focus toward India, closing its offices in Hong Kong and Shanghai. India is also contemplating offering a concession to the U.S. regarding Harley-Davidson, potentially through tariff adjustments. Optimus is collaborating with Taiwan's AVEX to manufacture advanced drone parts within India. Finally, the government continues to oversee a network of public sector banks in India in 2025. Saudi Arabia is actively diversifying its economy and fostering international cooperation. The kingdom and India have agreed to enhance collaboration in energy and defense, including plans to establish 2 oil refineries. Saudi Arabia, along with the UAE, condemned the terror attack in Pahalgam, reaffirming support for India. Prime Minister Modi and the Saudi Crown Prince also condemned the attack during their talks. Saudi Arabia's vision-driven asset management is growing, attracting businesses like Pimo and Explio. Aqua Power secured a SR 750 million loan to advance Saudi Arabia's energy transition goals for its Riyadh headquarters. Saudi Arabia raised $987 and $990 through Sukuk issuances in April. Ocean Quest, a foundation dedicated to deep ocean exploration, has launched in Saudi Arabia with a mission to accelerate ocean discovery, drive innovation, support global cooperation, and engage the public. NEOM is set to appoint an acting CEO to a permanent role. Saudi Arabia's U.S. Treasury holdings decreased to $126.40 billion in February. The Saudi Exim CEO Engashter Saad Al-Kalb emphasized the role of specialized banks in enhancing global export efficiency. However, the INF projects that Saudi Arabia's debt burden will rise more quickly, and the cost of insuring Saudi government debt has increased due to falling oil prices. The country is also preparing for its first IPO since recent tariff-related volatility, expecting strong demand. Turning to India, the nation is strengthening its ties with Saudi Arabia, especially in energy and defense, with agreements to deepen cooperation and establish 2 oil refineries in India. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have expressed their condemnation and support to India following the terror attack in Pahalgam. Prime Minister Narendra Modi concluded his visit to Saudi Arabia earlier than planned following the Pahalgam incident, during which he and the Saudi Crown Prince held talks and jointly condemned the attack. Saudi Arabia, previously considered an ally of Pakistan, is showing a shift in its relationship towards India. Japan's financial sector is facing scrutiny as the Bank of Japan advises banks to be cautious amid changing international trade dynamics. Simultaneously, there's a push from lawmakers for pension funds to increase their investments within the domestic private equity market. The Nikkei stock average has demonstrated strength, reaching a 3-week peak, propelled by positive trends in the tech sector and a rebound on Wall Street. The Nikkei 225 index saw a significant increase of 2.02%. Japan is also witnessing high levels of stock market engagement, with Nvidia and Tesla attracting considerable attention on Google. In foreign affairs, Moscow has officially condemned Japan's proposal to use frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine. In diplomatic news, the Prime Minister of Japan is preparing for visits to both Vietnam and the Philippines. Turning to China, Nissan is utilizing its production facilities to support its international growth ambitions through the export of electric vehicles manufactured in China, with new models highlighted at the Shanghai Auto Show. Adding to the business landscape, Tabelog, the Japanese restaurant review platform, has introduced a Chinese language version on WeChat, broadening its reach to consumers in China. Globally, Takeda Pharmaceuticals, guided by CEO Christopher Weber, has solidified its position as a leading pharmaceutical company. Australia's stock market saw fluctuations, initially climbing to pre-Liberation Day levels, then reaching a 3-week peak. This rally was fueled by mining and banking sector gains, coupled with positive signals from Wall Street due to relaxed trade tensions and reversal of former President Trump's tariff plans, which were estimated to cost Australia $13 billion. News of Paladin Energy's increased uranium production boosted its stock. E-commerce company Setter reported approximately $193 in fiscal Q3 sales. Commonwealth Bank, CBA, shares hit a record high as Phil King closed a significant short position. Despite Tesla's 71% Q1 earnings decline impacting the market, the Australia 200 rally. Fintech firm Cipher is poised to acquire Australian investing platform Self-Wealth. The High Court of Australia sided with Block Earner, rejecting an appeal from the Australian Securities and Investments Commission, ASIC. South Korea sees a resurgence in air travel with China, driven by visa-free policies that are stimulating tourism. Reflecting South Korea's heightened global role, the Asia Group has inaugurated an office in Seoul. Turning to the financial sector, South Korean regulators are contemplating cryptocurrency market reforms amid rising competition worries. Surveys show that over 50% of South Koreans have traded cryptocurrencies. Chinese funds are significantly flowing into South Korean Treasury bonds, causing a surge in their value. Fintech entrepreneur Lee Sung-gun, the founder of Thaw, is preparing for an IPO. Blackstone is evaluating an expansion of its Korean operations, demonstrating market optimism. In the realm of trade, South Korea is actively seeking a rapid resolution to the auto tariff dispute with the U.S. during current trade negotiations. Virgin Atlantic is introducing direct flights from London to Seoul, challenging established competitors. Mercedes-Benz is targeting the South Korean market with high-performance, bespoke luxury vehicles. Asian markets mostly saw gains, taking cues from Wall Street's positive performance and support from stable Federal Reserve statements and U.S. Treasury moves. Taiwan stocks led a widespread rally in Asian equities, while Indonesia's assets remained stable after the central bank opted to keep rates unchanged. China bucked the trend, diverging from the generally positive performance of Asian stock markets. Gulf markets also rose, encouraged by President Trump's statement that he would not fire the U.S. Federal Reserve Chair, calming market anxieties. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has revised its 2025 growth prediction for major Asian economies downward to 2.8%, citing trade-related concerns. The Stock Exchange of Thailand listed 8 Chinese technology depository receipts in April. A Nielsen report revealed an increased proportion of live sports viewership among Asian Americans. European markets navigated a complex landscape of trade tensions and monetary policy, resulting in fluctuating fortunes. Early optimism stemmed from anticipated US-China trade discussions and robust first-quarter earnings from giants such as SAP and L'Oreal. However, this positive momentum was tempered by anxieties surrounding potential tariffs and friction between then-President Trump and the Federal Reserve. These tariff threats specifically cast a shadow over European banks' projected earnings power in 2025. Despite these headwinds, European equity funds proved attractive to investors, contrasting with outflows from U.S. markets spurred by tariff anxieties. The financial sector and strong performances from companies like L'Oreal ultimately propelled European shares higher at closing. The Federal Reserve's stance, however, continued to be a source of unease for investors. Ukraine remains embroiled in conflict as Vladimir Putin expresses willingness to halt the invasion at existing front lines, issuing ultimatums to both Ukraine and the United States as preconditions for peace. Ceasefire efforts are being pushed by Ukraine, where government officials are actively seeking to reignite peace negotiations. Reports suggest Russia is proposing compromises, fueling discussions about potential resolutions to end the war. Shifting focus to the United Kingdom, the FTSE 100 saw an upswing, bolstered by a surge in consumer staples. This positive momentum in UK markets followed Donald Trump's apparent softening of his stance on the Federal Reserve. In contrast, Just Eat reported stagnant sales figures, attributed to lower than anticipated order volumes within the UK market. South Africa's economy is closely watched, as inflation data is anticipated. International investors are leveraging the BBay program. Capitec Bank announced a 30% annual profit surge. The JSE's Claim It initiative aims to return unclaimed dividends to South Africans. Binance is bolstering its compliance for crypto transfers in South Africa. A South African pharmaceutical company has been affected by undisclosed negative news. Canada is seeing a tight race as the election approaches, with the Liberal Party narrowly ahead. Canadian markets are showing strength, despite economic uncertainty. The S&P TX Composite Index rose 1.24% day. Canada is also considering innovative crypto options, like spot Solana ETFs that include staking. Switzerland is gearing up for crucial tariff negotiations with the United States, highlighting its robust economic position. Adding to the economic landscape, Nomura predicts that Switzerland will revert to negative interest rates, starting in September. In a move demonstrating international alignment, Switzerland has also implemented new European Union sanctions targeting Russian media organizations. Germany is seeing its companies in China adapt to US-China trade friction by increasing their localization strategies, with 38% taking this approach. Simultaneously, Eurex, a German entity, has launched innovative EU bond futures. Furthermore, German equities are rallying, driving up European market performance. Shifting focus to Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government is facing scrutiny over its proposed online streaming bill. Critics argue that the bill could potentially censor internet content. Canada is also grappling with increasing concerns over rising inflation rates, impacting household budgets and economic stability. In Australia, the government is set to introduce new legislation aimed at curbing harmful online misinformation. This move comes amid growing global concerns about the spread of fake news and its impact on democratic processes. Australia is also investing heavily in renewable energy projects. Turning our attention to France, President Emmanuel Macron is pushing for further European Union integration. He believes closer cooperation is essential to address shared challenges. France is simultaneously dealing with ongoing protests related to pension reforms, creating domestic political tension. Meanwhile, in the United Kingdom, the economy is showing signs of resilience despite earlier predictions of a recession. The UK government is focused on attracting foreign investment to boost economic growth. Also, new data reveals shifts in immigration patterns following Brexit. Argentina's Libertarian President, Javier Milei, has marked 500 days in office, drawing global interest with his market-oriented policies, the results of which are now under close examination. Turning to Brazil, equity offerings are off to their slowest start since 2004. Despite this, IBRA-FGV has increased Brazil's GDP forecast, even with the newly imposed tariffs by the United States. Trade relations are also in the spotlight, as Brazil and Germany are resuming treaty discussions to end double taxation. Furthermore, Egypt's exports to Brazil have almost doubled, and Chile and Brazil are commemorating 180 years of collaboration, reinvigorating their economic agenda. In Pakistan, the central bank intends to introduce green taxonomy guidelines by June, according to the finance minister. The finance chief is also looking to strengthen trade relations with the United States and supports reform efforts at global lenders. Singapore's inflation is at a 4-year low as the country anticipates elections. The headline inflation remains stable at 0.9% from the previous month, while core inflation has declined from 0.6% to 0.5%. Oman and Russia have formalized 11 agreements to bolster trade and bilateral relations, including a visa waiver agreement signed during the Sultan of Oman's visit to Moscow. Russia, in addition to the agreements with Oman, has also entered into a €2 billion joint investment agreement with Qatar involving sovereign wealth. Switching to Albania, Jared Kushner is targeting the Adriatic coast for luxury tourism development, with proposals focused on an area highly prized for its biodiversity. Ireland's aspirations to become the Saudi Arabia of offshore wind have encountered a major obstacle. In France, President Macron is contemplating another snap election. Cambodia is currently receiving financial support from China, while simultaneously being subjected to tariffs from the United States. Finally, on the African continent, Epson has established its inaugural African hub. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.